Guten Tag, my name's Nurchin, and today we're heading to the Swiss Alps in search of das Tatzelwurm, yeah? The Tatzelwurm. This is a creature that lives up in the mountainous Alps of Europe. It can be found from Switzerland, across to Bavaria, Austria, and even found as far south as Italy. Across these areas it's picked up quite a few aliases, including the Stollenworm, Springworm, Bergstutz, and Addersass. It lives in caves and burrows and supposedly manages to stay hidden by digging at high speeds. It's described as a reptile, about a meter long, thick as an arm, and with the tail of a serpent. At the front it has two clawed hands and the head of a cat. Why has it got the head of a cat? That's scary. Well, this is pieced together through generations of stories and documented sightings. The head looked feline, but it was still covered in small, smooth scales. Depending on the account, some said the entire torso was that of a muscular cat, while others ignored the cat features entirely. That's kind of just like a lizard or a snake though. And this tends to happen. When a creature's sightings are spread really far, they tend to change and warp depending on the local folklore. Some cultures went as far as to align the Tatzelwurm with the worm of Old English. A dragon? Maybe. There's lots of living creatures that are considered dragons. That's a dragon, that's a dragon, that's a dragon, and that's a dragon. But that doesn't mean that Tatzelwurm works as a blanket statement for dragons, so you can ignore all those half-researched articles and My Little Pony's ability to ruin everything. A good example recently was actually from God of War. An exaggeration for sure, but a pretty cool interpretation. But just because this thing isn't a dragon doesn't mean it doesn't have some cool abilities. So we're going years back, like 16th century years. As times have passed, its unique abilities appear to have been muddled, but there are definitely some reoccurring reports. Some believe that the Tatzelwurm had a venomous bite, as well as poisonous breath. What's with dragons always having something to do with breath? Like most creatures bite, shoot, and spit, but dragons always have like a breath thing. Some sightings claim it has a powerful hiss that reaches a certain pitch or frequency that causes you to run away or freak out. Some people also think that if you're standing too close, it's actually the noxious breath that causes you to panic, not the hiss. But who knows? And then, if you want to go back even further, it was a full dragon. Forget small snake-ass body, this thing was huge, with 4 arms. Still had a cat face though. Can't forget about the cat face. It's a little all over the place, so I'm gonna pick my own Tatzelwurm. Custom-made Cryptid. Reptile? Obviously. Cat face. Terrifying, but important, otherwise it's just a lizard. Venomous bite. I'll take the bite, but I'm gonna leave the breath. It just doesn't seem that likely unless the victims are French kissing the thing. And I'll keep it to its moderate size. This seems to line up with more of the reports, plus it seems more likely it could remain hidden this way. So, he's cute. But, is it real? This is unlike most cryptids I've looked at, because for the longest time, it was just considered another animal you could find in the Swiss Alps. In some cases it was just the local pest, with farmers complaining their cows' udders were being mysteriously sucked. I mean, that could have been anyone. In the 18th century, the Tatzelwurm even appeared in local almanacs as well as multiple published guides to the Alpine. People have told stories of eyewitness accounts as well as people finding bodies, skeletons, even taking photographs. It's just that all that evidence has been lost. One was killed with a shovel and thrown into a running river, one couldn't be preserved because crows supposedly ate it, and one couldn't be preserved because he shot it. What do you shoot it with, napalm? So we're left with zilch, nothing but generations of eyewitness accounts. But maybe the species was just once more common. The people from the time seem to think so. The fact that not a single body was preserved doesn't bode well for its probability, but anything could have happened to this species in the hundreds of years since its notoriety. Then again, these were simpler times. Everyone loved a good story, so maybe these creatures were just misidentified. Here are some of the more popular explanations. It was a large lizard or a snake. I mean, that doesn't really seem like a fair explanation because obviously it was going to be one or the other. People like to suggest the Gila monster or the slow worm, but that definitely doesn't explain the cat-like face or what they're doing all the way up in the Alps. Interestingly, the Gila monster does actually have a venomous bite, And some of the larger lizards, like the Komodo dragon, use venom as well as bacteria to infect and kill their prey. Wait, dragon? No, it wasn't the Komodo dragon. They're far too tropical to live up in the Alps. Then again, most large reptiles are. So maybe it isn't a reptile. Some people think it might be an amphibian, a giant salamander to be accurate. The only problem there is they need water and a damp habitat to survive, and which the Alps has none. To some cryptozoologists, we've heard this story before, from a very similar cryptid, the Mongolian deathworm. The Gobi Desert is probably the worst possible climate for a worm to survive in. They need moisture, and the Gobi has none. Without developing some kind of protection, a worm would dry up and die almost instantly. There are many species that look like or act like other cryptids, but they're never found in the right part of the world. A common deathworm suspect is the Mexican mole lizard, that even has little cat-like hands. Problem is, there's no way they could survive atop the Alps. Some actually think the Tatzelwurm could be an insect. Long, slithery body, the ability to spit poison, no bones have been found, and some insects imitate other creatures. But this is a lot of boxes to tick, all based off loose possibilities, plus most of them conflict with the eyewitness accounts. I do think, though, it's an interesting theory. Speaking of theories, here's one more for the road. An unpopular one, but one of my favorites. Weasel. I mean, look, it's kind of got a feline face, and it's effectively a snake with paws. There are even some species of shrew that have a venomous bite, which would tie in with the victim reports. I can tell you aren't convinced. I mean, look at these things. They're a menace, like a small furry dragon. You know what, I'm gonna have to write a TED talk on this thing. Weasels are like furry snakes, right? Like, not really, but you get what I mean, yeah? Please hold your applause.
Thank you.
Okay, it may not be a weasel, but when you look at the eyewitness accounts, it doesn't seem that implausible. The strange thing here is that usually there's a most likely explanation for each cryptid, but none of the candidates this time seem like a slam dunk. I mean, the evidence isn't strong in favor of the Tatzelwurm, but these people must have seen something, and to be honest, I'm not sure what that is. And just on the down low, I think I've managed to capture a Tatzelwurm of my very own. No, don't throw up on the carpet again. Ugh, why does it smell like paint stripper? And now it's melting through the floorboards. I'm probably not getting that bond back.